Welcome, fellow ag agents from across the nation. We're glad that you're here today. My name is Tyrone Fisher. I am the National Chair for the Public Relations and Agricultural Awareness and Appreciation Award. We are here today sponsoring the seminar, the webinar for today. And so we're glad to have Ms. Debbie Hamrick from NC Farm Bureau. She is one of our own. We call her our outside extension agent. She speaks at various and many extension programs. And so with that, Ms. Debbie Hamrick, the show is yours.
Thank you, Tyrone. So everybody, the first thing I want to say is thank you. You guys are on the front lines of dealing with consumers and the public on a daily basis. And folks like me that work at organizations like Farm Bureau really appreciate the things that you do for us in the industry and for farmers and actually for the public. You know, you're a viable, authenticated, and accurate source of information for everybody. And I can't say thank you enough for that. So what I want to do today is share sort of an abbreviated presentation that I've put together to give to public groups and some groups in agriculture, but mainly the public, things like Farm City Weeks or Rotary or Roritan clubs. And it came out of some work that the Northeast Center for IPM was doing. They had a program or project and received a grant to take a look at agriculture and how people form their ideas about sustainable agriculture. And I participated in several meetings that they did. And it got me thinking about how could I take some of the concepts that they were putting together in this program and put it to work in my own backyard, knowing that I'm invited to speak to a lot of public groups like a lot of you guys do. So what I want to do is I want to share that experience with you and a few of the slides that I use when I speak to the public about agriculture in general, in hopes that you'll maybe take something that I say away and say, I could do that in my own area. And I just want to point out, I know like a lot of you guys, we speak all the time. This is the first presentation that I have where basically every photograph I'm using is my own photograph. And I know you guys know how hard that is to do, but I worked really hard not to have any copyright issues with this particular presentation. So with that, let's get going. So these are things that farmers that I wish everybody knew about agriculture. So this whole idea with the IPM program, when they exposed me to this concept of frames. Frames are how we see the world very rapidly when we're confronted with information or we're confronted with something that may or may not agree with how we see things. It's how we sort right and wrong, good and bad, and it's how we navigate through society. And like it or not, I learned by participating in these groups that the consumers see agriculture through the frames that they've formed in their life. And we have to learn how
the screen is still black.
Oh, sorry.
We good. There we go.
You got it? Is it full screen?
It's full screen, but we do see your slides. It's not full screen presentation style.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Good.
That got it?
That has it.
Perfect. So frames are models that help us make quick decisions in our life and to sort information quickly so that we're not having to think about it too much. And they're hard baked into us. And a couple of the frames that the consumers have about agriculture, like it or not. Now, guys, this is something that we're not in charge of. These frames, we can't control them. But most consumers believe that natural production is preferred over man-made, highly manipulated production. We can argue about the definitions of that, but that's one of the frames they have. They also have a frame that modern farming is threatening to health and a sense of community. So if you'll allow me to let you be a guinea pig, I want to share with you how I've approached these two frames and tried to present agriculture in such a way that it enables anyone in the audience to say yes. So first of all, I'm seeking to unite the audience by creating a sense of us. It's not agriculture and the consumer, it's we. We're all in this together. Agriculture is technical. We're all comfortable with that. We all excelled in science. And our knee jerk when somebody asks us a question is to go to science because answers truly are complex. But we have to, if we're going to work with the consumers more and address their concerns about agriculture through frames that they get, is I think unite people by connecting to them as people first and not necessarily focusing only on science and facts. And that's been one of the things that I think we've missed in the agriculture community, is that person-to-person connectivity. And we're seeing a lot of farmers that are starting blogs and podcasts doing this and doing a great job of connecting to consumers. And I'm seeking to do that too. So I want to play in my presentation on the familiar, because people want familiar. They fear the unknown. So I try to use language that they understand that isn't at all foreign. I want to create a space for understanding. I don't seek to change anyone's mind. As a matter of fact, if you leave one of my presentations and you haven't changed your mind about anything with agriculture, I'm okay with that, because I know there's 3 or 4 people in the audience that got a new insight. So the things that farmers that I know wish everyone knew about agriculture. I had this great job with Farm Bureau. I get to drive all over the state of North Carolina. Well, maybe not so much in 2020, but it started up again. I log a lot of miles early in the morning and I come home late at night. And I have the good fortune of being able to meet people in the agricultural community across this great state in all 100 counties regularly. It's a fun job. I always like to say I have the best job at North Carolina Farm Bureau. For me, working in agriculture is a bit personal. This road sign in North Carolina, in the 10-mile community, with Taylorsville being 5 miles away and Lumberton being 9 miles away, is where I call home. That tobacco barn that's in the background was one that my grandfather Musselwhite built when he was growing tobacco back in the 1950s. So for me, this is personal. I'm the 2nd generation removed from the farm. Granddaddy Musselwhite was a tobacco farmer, and my granddaddy Hamrick tried to grow cotton before he had to stop to go work in town at a mill. So I come to my job, and I come to looking at agriculture in the state of North Carolina with some pretty important sort of like overviews. Being at Farm Bureau, first of all, at Farm Bureau, for us, agriculture is a really big tent, and it encompasses a lot of stuff. We believe all agriculture is valuable. There's not one type of agriculture that is more valuable or more important than another type of agriculture. And at Farm Bureau, we work every day to facilitate the choices that landowners can make in how they're able to work their land. So when I come at looking at the agriculture industry and what I want to share with you today, my observations, I'm coming at it with these 3 bullets. There's no bad agriculture. Agriculture is very broad and encompasses a lot of different types of activities and crops. And at Farm Bureau, we don't tell people what to do or how to do it. We facilitate their ability to choose how they participate in the agricultural economy in the state of North Carolina. So with that in mind, what are those things that the farmers that I know wish every single person knew about agriculture? The first thing, the very, very, very first thing, farmers have to make money. If they're not making money, they're not going to survive. And I can tell you, a couple weeks ago, when tomatoes were crashing and selling at below cost of production, that's a consternation. If a farmer doesn't have enough profit today to be in the game tomorrow, they have to sell. My grandfather Musselwhite, and I've just started talking about this in the last couple of years, actually committed suicide because he ran into some difficult times on his farm. I don't know if he reached out to anybody, but he was having financial problems. And rather than face the difficulties, he chose to end his life. And that was something that was very difficult for my grandmother. It thrust her into poverty for the rest of her life. She basically had to live off of a widow pension and some small farm income from renting their family farmland. So if you're a farmer, you've got to be able to pay the bills. You've got to be able to put food on the table. Our past president, Larry Wooten, liked to say, if I couldn't afford to buy my daughter piano lessons, I need to stop and get a job in town and do something else. And so if you're a farmer, you've got to make money in order to stay in the game. And most people don't realize, but farmers only make 9.7 cents out of every food dollar. Most people don't realize that. The farmers, the very beginning of that dollar, when you look at that whole distribution chain and that food chain, that food cycle, farmers do not make very much money out of our food dollars. And every penny that they earn is a penny that goes into paying expenses or their pocket. Hopefully it's their pocket, but too often in the past few years, it's gone to paying expenses. Earning a full-time living in farming is hard. As a matter of fact, just 5% of all farmers earn enough money to have 100% of their total income coming from farmers. Most people don't realize, but 3/4 of farmers earn less than 25% of their household income from farming. That's an important thing for everybody to understand when we're talking about farming. This is a gin ticket from my granddaddy, Gordon Hamrick, and they had farmland in Cleveland County, North Carolina, and were trying to grow cotton. And cotton in the Piedmont in North Carolina, they grew cotton on the same land over and over and over again, exhausted soils. And this was in the 1930s. You can see from September 30th, 1938, he only made $41.40 from that batch of cotton that he took to the Post Road Gin Company in Shelby, North Carolina, which was just down the road from his farm. That's about $750 today. Folks, he couldn't pay the bills being a farmer. He had to stop farming, and he went and he got a job at the textile mill, Dover Mill #2 in Shelby, North Carolina. And that's what he did. And he farmed only on the side, growing some sweet corn in the summertime that he sold or gave away to his neighbors. He was not able to make a living farming. Lots of farmers cannot survive farming. It's something that most people don't realize. It's a very, very difficult way to choose a living. So when I see a farmer, I thank them because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is for them to make a living. The second thing that most people don't realize about farming is that it's more diverse than just about anybody realizes. Here in the state of North Carolina, especially, we've got sweet potatoes, dairy, tobacco, soybeans, cotton, cattle, pasture pork in the mountains, aquaculture, one of the world's most advanced greenhouses. And not only are we diverse from a crop perspective, but we're also very diverse from a perspective of who's actually farming. Now, the same demographics that apply in terms of making money also apply to the cohorts demographically when we take a look at the race and the constituency of farmers. So a lot of our diversity in agriculture, these are folks, a handful of them are making a full-time living, but more, 75%, would be folks that are looking at farming as a part-time adjunct to their full-time job, or something that they're cultivating that they'd love to work into in retirement. But farming's become even more diverse since I've been at Farm Bureau, and I'm really excited, very excited to see the diversity in agriculture today. We've got here in just my state, more than 20,000 new and beginning farmers. And these FFA kids, do you know we have more FFA chapters in the United States than we do Walmarts? I'm so proud of that fact. More FFA chapters than we do Walmarts. And we have so many folks coming through FFA that become farmers. But more importantly, when they come through FFA, even if they don't go back onto the farm or have anything to do with farming, they have exposure to the agriculture world that forever will color how they think about agriculture and how they look at the world. It's an extremely important program. We have a lot of veteran farmers. As a matter of fact, here in my state, North Carolina, we've just established the North Carolina chapter of the Farmer Veteran Coalition. Across the whole state, we have 8,923 farmer veterans. Our FVC chapter has about 1,300 farmer veterans at this point in time. I've been ecstatic to be involved with this initiative in the state of North Carolina because I can tell you these guys know how to get things done. They communicate with one another well. They're all on the same page. I think farmer veterans, I'm really bullish on farmer veterans. I think they're an exciting group of folks farming. The next thing that the farmers that I know would like everybody to know about agriculture, and this one's hard for those of us working in extension or as non-consumers, is that farmers don't want to spray, period. And if I could have made that period the size of the entire slide, I should, because they don't want to spray. I've never, ever met a farmer that said, gee, I'm looking forward to going out and getting on my tractor and applying some pesticides today. That sounds like a great thing to do. That doesn't happen, guys. Farmers don't want to spray. And when you ask them at the farmer's market stall, do you spray? Generally, it's a question that they hate to answer, honestly, because the farmers that I know would like to dive into the science behind pesticide application and integrated pest management. But that's complex, and their customers typically don't want that kind of detail. And so they'll broad brush it and they'll say, yes, we spray, and we spray as little as possible. And in my career with Farm Bureau, I've learned there's 3 basic reasons for that answer from them. The first reason, it's expensive. And if you think back to the very first point that every farmer wants all consumers to know about agriculture is they have to make money. If you're spending money to spray a pesticide on a field, that money comes directly out of your pocket, and it's coming directly off the top line, off of your profit. It's money that they would prefer not to spend. And if they have a pest problem and they have to spray too much, they may lose money on that whole crop as a result of that. So they don't want to spray. They spray when they have to spray in order to make their yields. The second reason that I've learned farmers don't like to spray is because they know a lot. As a matter of fact, farmers know more about pesticides than most people walking around on the street, because they have to become trained as a certified pesticide applicator in order to use pesticides. So the farmer understands that pesticides are not an item to take lightly. They must be used correctly. They know that the label of the pesticide is the law. They know they must apply that product correctly when there's a problem to be attacked by the pesticide, and that they shouldn't just use pesticides prophylactically. They know a lot about pesticides, and as a result of that knowledge, they don't want to spray any more than they absolutely have to. Finally, the biggest reason that I understand many of my specialty crops farmers have to spray is they must protect their investment. And I give you an example with my blueberry buddies. This particular Google Earth inset or map comes from Pender County, North Carolina, the heart of blueberry country, southern high bush blueberry country, I might add, which are superior in my eyes to all other forms of blueberries, specifically the variety O'Neill, which is now out of season. I digress. But the blueberry boys down there, I'm sorry, I call them my blueberry boys, they have to protect their investment. It can cost them up to $30,000 an acre to prepare the land with irrigation, to buy the plants, and to get everything established for the blueberry farm. They're not able to get commercial harvest often for 3 years. So they've got $30,000 sunk into an acre of blueberries when they put a new acre in. Now they're able to amortize that expense over a long period of time. Blueberries can be cropped for decades, which is amazing and fabulous, but they can't take a risk on their investment. They have to make sure that their investment is protected, because spotted wing Drosophila, blueberry maggots, these pests are important, and the consumer refuses to buy a product when they see a bug flying out of a blueberry. So they have to protect their investment. It's a lot of money that they've got riding on the line. So farmers don't want to spray. They don't want to spray at all, but they have to. They don't want to spray because it's expensive. They understand how difficult it is. But when they do spray, in general, they're protecting their investment. They've got to protect their ability to earn profit from that land. And when they do spray, they're spraying following label instructions. They're spraying based on, most of the time in my crops, I know, integrated pest management. They're going for a particular pest. They're attacking a specific life stage of that pest, and they're choosing a product that's going to be targeted for the control of that pest. And they're doing so in a manner that protects the resulting crop. So farmers don't want to spray any more than anybody else wants them to spray. Please believe me when I tell you that. The next thing that farmers would like everyone to know is that I've never met a farmer that wasn't just as concerned about climate change as the general public is today, and especially our young people that are very concerned about climate change. They may not call it climate change like a Gen Y or a Gen X, but they're just as concerned about it as everyone else is. Here in North Carolina, we had two 500-year flooding events within 3 years that literally hammered eastern North Carolina. Hurricane Matthew, followed by Hurricane Florence 2 years later. Hurricane Florence was moving at 1.5 miles per hour, and it dumped almost 40 inches of rain over parts of southeastern North Carolina. I'm from Robeson County in southeastern North Carolina, and my folks down there got hammered in both of these rain events. So when you're talking about climate change and you're talking about dealing with the results of weather events caused by climate change, you don't have to tell farmers that it's not happening, because they're dealing with it on a yearly basis. We're seeing more drought periods. Earlier this summer, we had some flash droughts across my state. Then we've had heavier than normal rainfall because of the warmer air temperatures that have caused clouds over certain communities in North Carolina to just get a deluge. I talked to one farmer last week. He'd had 4.5 inches of rain over half of the farms that he was harvesting for watermelon. That's not a good thing, guys. We don't want 4.5 inches of rain on a watermelon that's ready to roll out of the field and into a consumer's home. So we're seeing heavier than normal rainfall. And the lack of rain or too much rain, it affects all aspects of production and timing. We've had situations where in Robeson County, my county, last year, it was so doggone wet in the springtime that they couldn't get all the fields planted. Meanwhile, going a little bit more north into Halifax County, they were planting and rolling along just perfectly well. And then all of a sudden they entered a flash drought, and all of a sudden planting had to stop. The farmer can't afford to put the seed out and go through the fields with their heavy equipment unless it's going to get moisture in order for germination to occur. So they weren't able to plant all of their fields because they didn't get enough rainfall. So our farmers are having to deal with all of this every single year. If you ever want to know what's going on with the weather, call a farmer. They'll be able to tell you. And they're having to deal with it. And we're working in agriculture to deal with it. We're working on all kinds of new cropping techniques so that we can add more organic matter to the soils to help retain moisture when we need to, and help more water infiltrate when we need that. And we're also working on installing irrigation systems, wise irrigation systems, especially here in North Carolina. Farmers are dealing with late freezes in the spring. And to go back with my blueberry example, this Mike Mainland, he's a retired extension researcher at NC State University, has kept track of the cooling days for the blueberry crop in eastern North Carolina all the way since the late 1960s. And you can see, he posts this at the Blueberry Council meeting every year. And we didn't have it last year, so I don't have the last 2 years of the Blueberry Council. But over the 21 years in this chart, we've had just 3 years with chilling hours that were greater than 750. 750 chilling hours for blueberry is ideal. Perfect. It's perfect chilling hours. We have to have chilling hours for blueberries. It's not that you can't grow a crop with fewer chilling hours. It's just that it's not as easy to grow a crop if you don't have as many chilling hours. And so we're having to see the farmers make changes in their production practices to compensate for temperatures that they're experiencing during the chilling times in the winter. And we're also seeing heat delay in the summertime. As I mentioned on the 4.5 inches of rain for that one watermelon grower, well, doggone it, today, same area, they're having heat index days with over, it's like 105 or 106 in those very same areas that got too much rain last week. So we're seeing the results of weather on a daily basis on the farm. Our farmers are just as concerned about the consumers are with climate change. And we're working diligently on a daily basis to help alleviate those concerns and mitigate them and ensure that we're going to have yield and be able to feed the population. The next thing that farmers wish everybody knew about farming is that farming and agriculture is a very necessary and important part of our economy. Most people don't realize how big it is. Here in my state of North Carolina, it's about $91.8 billion in economic impact. Our ag commissioner would like it to get to $100 million. That would be really cool. We have more than 44,000 family farms, and most of our farms, like most of the farms across the whole country, are family farms. Again, we have some detractors from agriculture that like to say corporate farms, but you can have a corporate farm and be a family farm. It's just a way of conducting business and how you write your checks. 27% of our land in North Carolina is still farmland. And we can't go back. You know, I talk to a lot of groups all over the state of North Carolina, and there's a lot of folks that have, for some reason, this idyllic idea that we can go back to some point, and I'm going to pick in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when this daguerreotype photo was made of a subsistence level farm in the mountains of North Carolina, so that we're all a family, we're living on the land, we're working the land. Well, folks, we can't go back to that. Our world is different today than it was then. It was a very difficult life back then. Our life expectancy was much less, and we didn't have enough food often. As a matter of fact, most of the farm programs that we have today started when we needed to raise armies to go to war to protect democracy. And one of the things that I'd like to get across why we can't go back. So if you look at the world population growth through history, and I was having a hard time relating to this until I thought about it in my terms of what I'm seeing in my lifetime. Granddaddy Hamrick, Gordon, in 1900, there was just 1.6 billion people here. By the time my daddy came along, Preston, there was 2 billion people here. When I came along, 3 billion, almost double the number of people when my grandfather was born. When my niece came along in 1985, almost 5 billion people here. And my great nephew, Jasper, almost 7 billion people in 2007. Today, we're at about 7.7 billion people on the planet, and everyone eats a minimum or requires a minimum of 2,000 calories a day. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have hunger, but that's a lot of calories to feed people. So we can't go back to the inefficient time when everybody was growing just enough food for themselves and wasn't very efficient with how they did that. We're beyond this. We've got too many people to feed, too many mouths to feed. We have to do it in a responsible way and respect the environment and respect sustainable development. So I've tried to remind people and how I present the things that everybody wishes, that farmers wish that everybody knew about agriculture, of the things that they already believe. Because when we remind people of what you already believe, it's easier to do that than it is to convince them of a truth. We sort of, I think in the last few years, have realized that we all walk into every conversation that we have with our own truth. So I'm trying to put language around issues and ideas in agriculture that reminds people in the audience of what they know and what they believe already. I'm trying not to threaten the tribe and cause anyone to mentally protect their ideas. When we speak with language that attacks someone's belief system, it threatens them. And it causes them, honestly, to circle the wagons a bit and protect their ideas and to protect their belief system and to protect themselves. And I'm trying to be entertaining. This wasn't funny, but normally when I'm speaking in front of a group, a public group, there's a couple of jokes that come up throughout the conversation. And I try to get the audience to laugh a couple of times just because, you know, when we laugh, when we're a little bit entertained, That's just as important as educating, and breaking the concentration with humor always helps people absorb more. So to conclude, agriculture is a big tent. All of agriculture is valuable. And I believe farmers do a great job of choosing how to work their land given their individual circumstances. And these are the 3 points that I conclude with every time. And I also challenge at the very end, connect with a farmer. Put a farmer in your Facebook feed. Put a farmer in your Twitter feed. Just connect to a farmer. Find a farmer on Instagram or listen to a podcast or two. They're pretty cool people and they've got a lot to offer. And that's my contact information. When I end, they can see I'm a real person with a very messy office, as you guys notice there. And that is a used, I'm just noticing this is an old photo. That's an old office chair that was broken sitting in the corner over there. That's my spiel. I'm asked to give this talk, and I cut out a section that I normally present on broadband just for time purposes today. But I liked people to everyone needs to realize that farmers are not necessarily connected to high speed. We don't have that. That's a luxury oftentimes for us. It's not a given. Not every farmer has high speed. That's my spiel. And I hope you've gotten a couple of ideas about some things that you might be able to do to present agriculture in a way that creates a sense of us with the audience and brings them with us, because we need consumers to come with us in agriculture today more than we ever have before.
Great job, Miss Debbie. I think that everyone's going to look at this picture and say that looks like an extension agent's office, not a Farm Bureau office.
So I just want to say to Mr. Richard Ben, I'm trying to see your Ben
Yeah.
Bronken. I invite you here next June, and I'll go up there and we'll compare notes.
Yep. I said that's the only comment I see is that Atlantic City versus the rest of the world on blueberries. Atlantic County.
Well, I'm arguing with him there. I defend my comment.
As of right now, there are no questions in the chat, and there are no questions in the Q&A. Ms. Debbie, since you modified your presentation, if you would later on, or when you get back from your vacation, please send me a PowerPoint. If anybody requests it, you can ask Ms. Debbie herself or give me a shout out on email as well, and I'll make sure you get it. Are there any other questions? I think Ms. Debbie, you hit a home run on behalf of agricultural awareness and appreciation. The insight and education that you provided today falls right in line with our committee. I'd like to thank our vice chairs from across the nation that also recommended you. Thank you, Ms. Catherine Holmes from North Carolina, that has seen your presentation before and highly recommended you to come and speak today on behalf of our national committee here. So I'm seeing that other great comments. Thank you, great presentation. No other questions. And with that, I'm going to say, Ms. Debbie, thank you very much and enjoy your vacation.
I will. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone stay safe and see you hopefully in West Palm Beach next year or somewhere sooner.